So the next stitch that we're going to look at is called a single crochet in US terminology and a double crochet in UK terminology. Now this is the thing about crochet, the stitches have different names depending on where you are in the world. Most people use the UK terminology or US terminology. There is also an Australian terminology, I believe, but we're going to focus for the minute just on the UK and US. So I want to show you a swatch I've got here, just ignore those scruffy ends, for the different types of stitches. Crochet stitches are named because of the height. So in the UK, a double crochet is 2 chains tall, a treble is 3 chains tall, and so on. And in the US, a double crochet is called a single crochet, which kind of makes more sense really. And it's the one at the bottom of my swatch here. So the first thing that we do when we create any piece of crochet is to make a chain, which is you can see in another video. Then the next thing we do here is that we're working these stitches, which are single crochet US, double crochet UK. And I would say that these are 1 chain high. So this is the height of the stitch. It's the smallest of the actual crochet stitches, and it's often used if you want to create a really sort of dense fabric. So I'm going to show you how to do this stitch here. So here we go. We've got our chain, and when you work into the chain, you will often see the instruction in a pattern to work into the first or second or third chain from the hook. And so for a double crochet UK, single crochet US, that stitch is 1 chain high. So I'm going to work into the second chain from the hook here. So that would be the first and this would be the second. So how we work into a chain is that we put our hook into the middle of the chain. Now there are lots of different, people work into different bits of the chain. I tend to work into the bottom of the chain here, and so I'm going to put my hook in there, and then I'm going to use the hook on my hook, the actual hooky part, to pull the working yarn through the hole like that. And now I've got 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to pull the yarn around the back of the hook and pull it through these 2. So I'm going to hang on to the bottom of the stitch so that I've got more mobility on my hook. Just pull that through, and that is my first single crochet US, double crochet UK. So I'm going to go into my next chain here, which is this one. I put the hook in, then I'm going to use the end of the hook to pull the working yarn through so that I've got 2 chains on my hook. 2 loops on my hook, bring the yarn around the back and then pull that through these 2 like that. So let's have another go. Here's my next chain. So I'm going to put my hook into the chain, use this end part to pull this yarn through the hole. So now I've got 2 loops on the hook, bring the working yarn around the hook, and then I'm going to pull this working yarn through these 2 loops like that. And I've created 1, 2, 3 stitches so far. So I'm now going to put my hook into the chain and pull up the loop. I've got 2 stitches, 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to bring the yarn around the back of the hook and pull through these 2 stitches, these 2 loops. Now, just as I do this, I'm bringing the yarn around the back of the hook and I'm going to hold these 2 loops steady with my left hand, and then I'm going to pull it through with the right hand. When you start off, it's quite a good way to do it because you're keeping the stitches steady. So I'm putting my hook into the chain and I'm going to pull up a loop from the working yarn at the back. Then I'm going to take the working yarn, bring it behind the hook, I'm going to hold those 2 loops with this hand, and then I'm going to pull this chain through these 2 loops. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have another go. So I'm going to put my hook into the next chain, which is here. I'm going to pop it through. I'm going to pull up a loop, the working yarn, through the chain so that I've got 2 loops on the hook. Then I'm going to bring the working yarn around the hook, hold these 2 here, and then pull through. There we go. Now let's just go to the end. So working into the chain, which is what we're doing now, is probably the fiddliest bit of your project. And when you get into the next stage, and I'll show you the next bit of how to work a double single crochet, you'll see that it's much easier. It's just very fiddly working into the chain. So I'm going into the next chain, which is here, put my hook in, pull up a loop. So I've got 2 loops on the hook, bring the yarn around the hook, hold those 2 steady, and then pull it through like that. Now I'm going to just work to the end of this, and then we'll show you how it works when we get to the end. So I'm pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through, into the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through, into the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. See, we're nearly there. Into the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. A bit of extra yarn there. Into the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And now I wanted to show you this part. This is at the end of the chain. So this is the very last chain on the hook, and there is where I'm going to pop my hook just into that place there. It's very important to always make sure you get the last stitch, whether it's in a row or in a chain like this, otherwise you'll get work going at an angle. So we put we put the hook in, we pull up a loop, and there are the 2 loops on the hook, yarn around the back, hold them steady, and then pull your hook through. So we've done all of the stitches in my chain. Now I'm going to make a chain here, and remember, making a chain, we bring the yarn over the hook and just pull it through the loop, and then I'm going to turn the work around. Now this is where it will make a lot more sense, because I'm going to show you exactly where to put your stitches. So when you're working on any crochet project, once you've gone into the chain and you have your first row, then you can see the stitches sitting on the top, and the stitches show up like this with little V shapes all the way along. Now, just for straightforward crochet into the stitch, we put our stitches underneath those 2 V's. So if it's just a general old stitch, it goes in here underneath those 2 V's. So you might find patterns that ask you to work into just the front loop or just the back loop, but we're just going to work into these 2 V's here. Whoops. So I'm just going to pull that tighter. Now we chained 1 at the beginning of that row just before we turned, and we do that to take us up to the next height for the next row. So I'm going to put the end of my hook under those 2 V's at the first, that's just the first stitch there, pull the yarn through there until I've got 2 loops on the hook, and then I bring the yarn around the back and pull them through 2. For the next one, I'm going to work under the V there, use the little hook to pull the yarn through to pull up a loop. So you've got 2 loops on the hook, yarn around the hook, and then we come back through both. So then we go under the next V, pull up a loop, yarn around, and I'm just holding those stitches, those loops at the bottom, so I can pull this through and really make your hook work. Get this little hook to hook around. If it's up here, it's not doing much, but just pull that through. And so we go under the next V, pull up the loop, yarn around, and then pull through. So we work like this until we get to the end of the row, and I'm just going to show you what happens at the end of the row. So it's important to make sure that we get the last stitch. Here is our last stitch. I've just got my thumb in it there. Always make sure that you work into the last stitch, because otherwise you will get a crooked line right at the end. So there's our last stitch. So I've worked right to the end, and this is double crochet UK, single crochet US. So I'm now going to show you how to work a gorgeous stitch. This is a stitch I use all the time for blankets or scarves or anything at all. This is the UK half treble, US half double crochet.